All right, moving on. Moving on. As I said earlier on, we're talking about color psychology, and it's one major challenge that people always have when it comes to design. Understanding how to use colors, understanding what colors to choose, understanding what exactly the choice of colors in your design should be. And it's a challenge I also had as a beginner when I started. In fact, I almost felt like I wasn't going to be able to create a design. I had a lot of fears, most especially because I felt that color wasn't my thing. I felt that I'm not a creative and I would definitely struggle with something like this. So one of the challenge I had was or how well I'll be able to combine colors together in my journey in design. It's end up I was able to understand so well, and I got to understand that there's something called a psychology behind color, and color is something that is actually quite deep. Like they always say, color is it's quite deep, it's broad, and it's something that a designer has to study, right? A designer has to learn to understand how color works for you to be able to apply it well to any design you're creating. Without understanding a lot with your design, which is what you may have noticed. Don't I'm not getting how this color thing works. Why is it that none of this color thing is really that person is making it look easy? So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's class. Color and how to color psychology, how to understand the use of color and applying it to your design. So moving on. All right. So moving on, these are the points we're going to cover in the course of this class. We're going to be having a brief introduction, and we're also going to be having talking about what color psychology is all about. We're going to be talking about color meaning, then some terminologies you should know regarding colors, as well as what color quantity is and color contrast. Understanding these things would make designing easier. All right. And I'm going to make it as simple as possible such that you'd be able to, after this class, you'd be able to know the exact kinds of colors that you need to use for your design, right? How to understand what each color represents, how to know the colors to choose, right? Moving on, so who is this young lady talking to you? And I'd love to share my screen right now to show my face, right? But here's a picture of me, and this is me. I'm Esther Kodu. For those that haven't met me before or you don't know me, first of all, a lover of God and a graphic designer and also a coach with over 3 years of design experience. And I've been able to use my skill to help business owners grow their brand visibility. I work as a brand identity designer, and I've also been able to train other designers, thousands of designers across several countries, on how to create design, particularly with Canva, whether you're using your smartphone or your PC, right? And one of the beautiful things with design is that if you know how to use some smartphone design tools, it makes it easier. And that's one thing I always have been pushing out to empower people, to help them know that you don't have to wait until you have a PC before you can learn, but you can do magic with your smartphone. And the honest truth is, for the first 2 years of my design career, I designed with a smartphone, and I was able to make some fantastic designs with my smartphone. So that's why I keep, trying to make people aware that there's so much you can do. There's so much you can do. So moving on, when it comes to communication, when we talk about color, it is one of the vital things that you need to know in design, right? Looking at where you are right now, I know it's already getting dark already, but if you can look around you, try to look around to see some objects in the particular place where you are, whether it's a room, whether you are out. You'd see one thing you'd notice is that every element has colors. Every element has its own colors. And it tells you that colors represent something. And the choice of color that people pick, it inspires, reactions, it evokes emotions, and even changes, it affects your mode of thinking. Color can make you feel excited. Color can soothe your mood. Color can make you feel calm. It can make you feel hungry. So whether whatever it is, every aspect of your life, if you're going out, even the vehicles you see, even the billboards, everything, every object has its own color. And the colors were not chosen by mistake, but rather they convey a meaning. So when it comes to color in design, it's a very, very vital experience. And through color, we can feel, through color, we can. Someone is saying she can't hear. Please, can every other person hear me? Please confirm. Can every other person hear me? Can every other person hear me? All right. So please, you can exit the call and join again if that's the case. So color is vital to human experience. I was saying that through color we can feel, through color you can communicate to people, right? Through color, even people advertising used to sell their products, right? Through colors, people use it to increase productivity. And every color has its own meaning. That's why we talk about the psychology. How does color work, right? And even with our outfit, with whatever you're putting on today, sometimes color, your mood can affect the choice of color for the clothes you want to pick, right? So this is telling you that everything, we're always very particular. In as much as you think that as a designer you are bad with colors, I'm pretty sure that when you want to go out for an outing, right, you're always very careful with the color combination, because you know that if you dress funny with some funny colors that do not match, the kind of feedback you're going to get. You know that it's going to affect your major outlook, and some people may end up just, laughing at you, at your outfit. And because of that, you take extra care to check out how you look, to check out if you're wearing matching outfits that, colors that match well, if you're wearing colors, outfits with colors that go together. And also, we'll then move on to talk about the psychology of color, which is why we are here. Right. Just a moment, please, a moment. Okay. So, talking about psychology of color, one thing that you want to see is what I would like to start with is that when you go to a particular part of the world, one of the colors that they put on for a funeral is what? Black, right? And what that simply communicates is solemnity, and also showing that people are grieving around us, and we need to respect that, right? But in another part of the world, black would mean a different thing. If you go to a country like India, for instance, you'd realize that they will not put on black for their funeral. I don't know if you've noticed that. For those that love watching Bollywood, right, Indian movies, you notice that they would always put on white. And that's because color means something differently in every part of the world. Also, for weddings as well, you'd figure out that the bride would always put on a white color because it represents something, which is purity, right? To represent that, she's going into a new home, and something that symbolizes purity. That's usually the norm. So usually there is power in there's power to color in designs, and these colors spark up certain emotions. And the essence of why I gave that illustration is because in a particular part of the world, a color might mean something to them. In another part of the world, color might mean something different. just as when you come to, I'm trying to think of colors that mean differently in different part of the world anyways, but when you're going out on the road, let me use a very typical example. When you're going out on the road, for instance, one of the things that you're going to see is a traffic light. And for everyone that sees the red color in the traffic light, what does that signifies to you? Please let me know in the chat. What does red represent to you? When you see red color in the traffic light, what does it represent? It tells you stop. Thank you. Thank you, Chino. So thank you, praise. One for thank you. Okay, thank you. Stop. So red means stop. So even without anybody coming to shout it to your head, you know that the moment you see the red color, you are to stop. And that is not someone bringing a microphone to tell you something. That is color speaking to you. So even while you say the green colors, it tells you go. So go rather. So color is regulating and instructing people on certain things to do. So color speaks in design. The kind of color you use generally can either give you a sense of happiness, can give you a sense of calmness, can make you feel happy, can make you feel that sense of being energetic, can even make you hungry. And that's why when you look at food brands, what colors that will resonate, what are the colors that you've seen brands that are that sell foods? What color do you think, or do you associate with them? What are the colors? I'd like to get your response in the chat. Thank you, Charity. Red. Okay, someone, Amisa is saying red and green. Okay, it's not only red. And do you know why? Why did they choose red? Why did they choose green? Why do they usually, someone said white. I'm not so sure, right? I'm not so sure. I've not really seen a food brand using white. So some use orange, some use yellow. That's right. So can anyone just tell us, why do you think they use, what does the red represent for them? What does green represent for them? What does yellow represent for them? Why do you think all of them tend to use, okay, someone might be saying stew. Thank you. The color of stew is it orange or red? Okay. So, yeah, it represents hunger. Thank you, Chinonso. David said green is natural. Thank you. Red is spicy. Thank you very much. Okay, Lawrence is saying that basically a lot of food turns out to be red. Awesome. Awesome. Someone said it's still a color. It has a color. Like I said, everything has a color. Every single thing has a color. Anything that is tangible that you can see has color. And even God was very, very particular with the choice of color for everything created. Even the sea has a color. The sky has a color. The trees has a color. So first off, I'd say that God started with all of this creativity, right, when the world was created. And he was mindful of the colors that was chosen at creation. And so even you as a designer, you are what? A creative, which tells you that you create things. And just as God was very mindful with the choice of color, even with your own skin color, right? Even as God was mindful with the skin color that you have, you also have to be mindful when you are a creative, because everything speaks. Everything that, it's every color rather speaks. Every color speaks. And when we are choosing colors for our designs, we should let it be based on the influence of the type of emotion you want to bring out in your design. For food brand, they want you to feel hungry. They want you to see their brand, and then that appetite just comes, right? They want you to see, nature, something natural. That's where they use green. You see brands, I'm thinking of brand names that are, now all of them just suddenly disappeared from my head. I don't know why. Brand names that sell food, Domino Pizza, yeah, Indomie, thank you. See the yellow color, KFC, thank you very much. Now, there are colors associated with these brands, and each of them chose them uniquely because of what they represent. You will not see, thank you, My Food by Hilda. You will not see a food brand using purple. You will not see a food brand rather using brown for their color. You will not see a food brand Using what other weird colors will not go? Using blue, because yeah, pink, it doesn't work. Because it doesn't help them appeal to their audience, it doesn't help them communicate, it doesn't help them to reach out to their target audience, right? So this shows the intentionality with which brands go, the extra mile when choosing color. It's not because they like the color. And so as a designer, you have to move. Okay, you've seen a food brand use purple. Well, I don't know what that was meant to represent, but they probably have other colors that complement that. It can't only be purple, because purple represents something different. Okay, I'm really sorry, Victor hasn't been able to connect. I'm hoping you can. I guess it's network. Okay, so what I was trying to say is that your choice of color as a designer, you need to move from the level where, because when you come into design, one of the mistakes I made, or not, let me not say mistakes, it's a learning phase actually, is that I just choose colors based on the color that I like, that suits, or that is that can be easily combined together, right? At that level, when I started out, I tried to just ask myself, does this color go well with this other one? And at the point, I realized that I was now tending to create designs based on the colors that were kind of my favorites. So for almost all my flyers, you see a kind of similarity with the colors, because that was just what I thought that, oh, I just like this color, so I can always just use it for my designs. Not understanding and realizing that it goes beyond you as a designer. Choosing color for your design is not about you or what you want. It's not about you or what you want. Someone is saying that the network is bad. I don't know if every other person can hear me. I'm hoping that every other person can hear me. I'm hoping that you can hear me. All right. So it's not about choosing colors because it is what you want or because it is what you like. So you need to transition from where you are that level, right, as a designer, where you just choose a color because it is fine, to a designer that truly understands how colors works and applies them to your design. Because at a point, you should be able to even tell people, the concept behind why you chose a color for a design, not just because you like it. That's why you see brand identity designers, they would go the extra mile when we are designing a brand document. They'll go the extra mile to tell you the meaning of the color and how it is associated with the brand. Not just because the color is fine. As a designer, you begin to see beyond yourself. Now, the essence of you designing is not just for yourself. You're designing for a client first, number one, but secondly to an audience. Your design has to speak well to an audience, because if you're trying to, what I mean by audience is, who are the category of people that you're trying to communicate to? Who are the category of people that you're trying to speak to? You need to consider that before choosing your colors. So let me just move on so that I don't do. I'll still get back to that. So I wrote here that colors have qualities that can cause certain emotions. Okay, colors have qualities that can cause certain emotions in people, right? Color psychology is study of how human determines human emotions, right, and behavior. This is simply what color psychology is all about. You studying how colors, influences humans' emotion, how you make people feel, how you make people react when they see your colors. So I'll start with this. When you see this color, what comes to mind? When you see this color, what comes to mind? When you see this color on my screen, what comes to mind? What comes to mind? Blood. Okay. Rosina said danger. Thank you, Rachel. Danger. Okay. Okay. Someone will think danger. All right. It can't only be danger. There are other meanings. Everybody is saying danger. Okay, stop. Yeah, grief. Thank you. Love as well. Thank you very much. Brightness. Okay. All right. Sadness. Okay. Stop. Anger. So colors can mean a lot of things to different people. Now imagine if, okay, the screen is showing because I think every other person can see my screen, David. So I think we need to leave the call and join again. So imagine if you do not consider the purpose of your design Pepper soup. Pepper soup is not red. Okay. I don't know what kind of pepper soup you are eating that is red anyways. Okay, so imagine energy, thank you. Imagine you not considering your audience before choosing colors. And you just went ahead after getting a design brief, or just went ahead after communicating with your clients that okay, what color would work? What color can I just put together that would, that would blend well? And then you are done. And at the end of the day, that color is not really appealing to your kind of audience. Now, when I mean your audience, what you want to ask yourself is, who are those that I'm designing for? Now, your client, whoever you're working with, is a big or huge part of your design that you're working on. But a larger part of your people that influence your design are the audience. So what will appeal to them? If you are designing for youth, for instance, what colors would resonate with young people? If you are designing for children, okay. If you are designing, if you can't see my screen, please leave the call and join again. You'll be able to see. If you are designing for children, so anyone, if you are designing for children, let me just throw this out before I move on. If you are designing for children, what are the colors? Okay, I think for children, any bright colors. Because of time, let me just, blue, someone said pink, okay. When, let's say you're trying to create a book cover, a storybook for children, you know that the kind of colors that you will use, in fact, for children, you can combine as many colors as possible because you want to make it pop. You want to make it attractive. You want to make it captivating. You don't want them to be bored because children's attention span is very, very limited and they can get easily distracted and bored. If the design is very boring, if it is whatever kind of book that you are reading, whatever it is that is design related, you notice that when it comes to children, it has to be colorful. There has to be colors everywhere. But if you use that same concept for adults, someone that is an elderly person, when the person sees those color combinations coming out and shouting to them, they would initially not, in fact, they would immediately just tell you that they don't like the design. You may have heard a client tell me that they don't just like the design. They don't know what is wrong about it, but they don't like it. The truth is, if you look well, you may realize that one of the things that may be off regarding the design may just be the colors. And when you end up going to change the colors, they may just be so fine with it. And every other thing will be fine. Now, a typical example of this, I created a design for someone yesterday. I sent it to her this morning. And she's, an elderly person. And when she saw the design, now, I worked with their brand colors because she just sent a logo and stuff. And I created the design based on I created a design based on the brand colors that I saw in the logo. But after I was done, I knew that there'll be an issue because the color was bright. It was pink, right, for the brand logo. And I just knew that because of the kind of person that, I'm creating designs for, because of the audience, it's a university outside the country, right, an international university. And I knew that because this is, something like this color may look too shouty. But the moment I sent it to her, every other thing was okay. She was okay with every other thing, just that the color was too shouty. Now, if it was someone else that was perhaps younger, or maybe a lady, for a young lady, that color may have been perfect, right? But because of the audience, because of also the person I'm creating design for, that was not fine. So I just had to use the same color, but tone it down. Like I had to use a shade of that color for it to be acceptable. So when you're creating design, you need to consider not yourself, but your audience. Not yourself, but what would also appeal to your client. So what would speak well to the person you are creating for? What would speak well to the kind of audience? Which is why before you even start doing any design, you need to do a research. What are the people I'm creating this design for? What are people that need this design, right? This has to be forefront with everything that you're doing. Before creating a design, don't just get a design brief and go. Try to take some time to think. Who would this design appeal to? Who are the target audience? This would help you make informed decision on the colors that will appeal to them. Moving on, talking about color psychology, we have different, colors. We have different colors that speak different things. So here I wrote that red colors talks about excitement, talks about strength, as we've all talked about before. Orange color talks about confidence, talks about success, talks about sociability, right? If you are working, creating something for a brand that has to do with them being, sociable and things like that, you want to use a color like this. Yellow talks about happiness, being cheerful, being happy, and things like that. So this is a vibrant color, majorly for youth, young people, and things like that. So this is something you want to, try to begin to study. Green talks about nature, healing, freshness. Now, if you go on Google now, time is fast spent already, and I don't want to take much of our time. Okay, so we're going to just continue. I was here talking about color before Telegram happened. So here we'll be talking about color meaning. And I'd like anyone to tell us, in your opinion, in the chat box, what do you think color is? Who's this person, for goodness sake? All right, please in the chat, just tell me what do you think color is? What is color? What does color mean to you? What does color mean to you? What is color? What is color? Anybody, 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 anybody. Okay, someone said colors are expressions of feelings. Wow, thank you. Steven said a visual perception. Thank you. Rosina said color is the reflection of things around us. Awesome, that's beautiful. Matthew said something used to explain something better. Anything can be used to explain something. Okay. All right, thank you. That's excellent. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your thoughts on what color is. Okay, color is a visual sense of feeling. Thank you. Rachel is saying color is a sensation or attraction. Thank you. Color is what the eye sees when light reflects on an object. Nice. This is a photography definition of color. All right, moving on. Thank you very much, everyone that gave responses. That was superb. And wow, thank you very much. So I figure that color actually doesn't have meaning attached to itself. So if you see anything, if you go on Google, you definitely see things called meanings here and there. Rather, I'd say that color is the meaning that we attach culturally to them, right? And some of colors, like I said, symbolizes one thing in one nature, one part of the country and another part of the country. For instance, in Nigeria, particularly let me not call it tribe. If you see a red cloth tied to something, what comes to your mind when you see that color, right? A red cloth tied to something. Anybody. Okay, somebody said don't try it. Another person said danger. Okay, Juju, thank you, Cham. Okay, that is it could okay. So in Nigeria, that would mean danger. You should run for your dear life, right? No matter, even if there wasn't any charm attached to it, the moment you see a place tied with a red cloth or red something, you know that you're not to go near. So it is the meaning that we have culturally assigned to them. That is what color means to us. So in another part of the world, that may not mean anything. So even if there was charm in that place and a white person or another person that is not in Nigeria comes, the person will just enter without knowing that, that is something that is there. So color actually, we've talked about, so I'm just going to fast forward to the next part so that we don't dwell so much on that. So I wrote here that color has its own language, and until you learn it, you'll never understand it. If you don't understand it, there will always be a break in your communication with it. So we'll be talking about color wheel. Some of us have learned warm colors in primary school, cool colors, and neutral colors. So it's not going to be so new to us. So we'll be talking more about warm colors. We're talking about cool colors and neutral color. Because of time, I'd have loved to get feedback, questions, and things like that before we continue. I'll proceed. All right. So warm colors are colors that are placed. This by the way is a color wheel. So this circular thing you're seeing here is a color wheel. I don't know why my mouse is not moving. but I was trying to point to it. But the circular wheel you're looking at here is a color wheel, and it's just a circular representation of colors, right? So the colors that are placed together, that's the mouse not moving. Okay, let's move on. So the colors placed together are on the top of the color wheel. They are what we call the warm colors, and they are colors that remind you of warmth. Colors like sun, colors like fire rather. They are colors like red, colors. Yeah, it's similar to what you see when you're editing a video or when you are even on cam. You definitely just see something like this, you know. So these colors that you see here, my pointer is not okay. Now it is. So the colors you see at the top of the color wheel are what we call the warm color. So they are something that make you feel, just like the name implies, warm. They make you feel warm. It kind of feels inviting, right? And they pull your target audience to your design, right? That's why you see a lot of people would want make my design pop, make my design, you know, this. They want you to put colors that will make it look inviting, that will make it look fun, make it look good. Some people, like I said, what may appeal to one person may not appeal so well to another person. I've mentioned that already before that. So these are what we call warm colors, and they are things that youths would like, young people would like a lot. Then we have the cool colors. Cool colors are colors that are cool in nature, just like the name. When you talk about cool colors, we talk about, you know, water. Water is cool. Talk about ice, right? And the color of these things, color doesn't, I'm sorry, water doesn't exactly have colors, right? But when I'm just talking about things that, you know, it kind of represents what I'm talking about when we say cool, right? And it's something that when you look at the sky, for instance, you just feel that kind of, you know, try going out in the night. Not many of us do that these days because you are scared that somebody will carry you. But if you try go out in the night, try to look at, so I said the night rather, during the day rather, the sky would always be blue. And then when you look at it, you feel that kind of serenity. So that's what colors would always give to you. So cool colors are colors like blue, the green, you know, violet. You find them at the lower part of the color wheel. And they're also usually associated with calmness, truth, and professionalism. Now, next one is neutral color. Neutral colors are colors that do not appear on the color wheel. You would never see white on the color wheel. You never see black on the color wheel. You never see brown on the color wheel. Those are neutral colors, and they always come in different shades, tint, or tone. We'll talk about what shade, tint, and tone means shortly. So usually the neutral color just gives a feeling of maturity, dependability, and more. So this is just a representation of what I just talked about. These are the warm colors here. These are the cool colors that you can see, and this is the neutral colors. So some color terminologies that you should know. Number one is hue. Hue. So hue simply means the origin of the colors that we see, like the original color without it being diluted. Just like you see watercolor, for instance. When I was in secondary school, we used what we called watercolor, poster colors, and I don't know if they see it anyways. But those colors are in the original form without you diluting them, without you adding anything to them. So that's why we call them hue. The original colors are what we call hue, just like what you've seen here. These are the main colors without anything, without adding anything to it. Now, the next kind of colors, or this is what we call shade. It's not shade, it is shade anyways. So shade is simply the result of adding black to a hue, right? When you add black to a hue, you get shade. That means it keeps going darker and darker. These are square shades, by the way. I just placed a dark shade of red on top of the second square that made it darker. So I just added a certain percentage of black, right, to this. I would have loved to show us a visual representation of that. I'm trying to run because of time, and yeah, like I said, I'm trying to ensure that we don't use more than 1.5 hours here. I'm hoping that we keep to that time at most hours. Okay, I hope there's no shadow here anyways. So this, like I said, is a visual representation of you adding black. If you keep adding black to this red, it becomes darker. It's still red, but a darker shade of red. So a shade is a result of adding black to hue. Now the next one is tint. A tint is a result of adding white to hue, right? The first color box you see here is green. When you add a little bit of white to it, it becomes what? Lighter. So it's now a tint of green. If I add another percentage of white to it, it becomes another tint of that same green. So it keeps getting lighter and lighter. So that is what we call a tint. Remember, the hue is the original color. Shade is when you add black to the color. A tint is when you add white to a color. And the next one is a tone. All right. Thank you, Dami. So a tone is the result of adding gray. I hope you know what gray is. Gray is a color that is almost black, but not black, right? So if you add gray to an original color, you get a tone. So this is different levels. Now for this the first block here is the original color. When I add, let's say 10% of gray to that original color, it becomes a tone of that, blue, right? That means it's going to be a bit darker than it is, right? So this is what we call a tone. So in case you're hearing these terminologies, you may think you don't need to know them now, but you may not tell where you would find yourself, where this may really come in handy. So you need to understand these terms, right, that we use in design. So here we have, okay. So here we have color quantity in design. For every design you're creating, the colors have, the colors you use here, they have quantity, right, that should be applied to the designs. So the first one I'll talk about here is so here I wrote here that we have what we call the dominant color. All right, what we call the dominant color, and the rule states that it's called the 60-30-10 rule. The 60-30-10 rule, and the 60-30-10 rule simply means that we have what we call the dominant color, we have what we call the subordinate color, we have what we call the accent. Right, I'll take that again. We have 60% of your design should have the dominant color, 30% of the design should have the subordinate color, and then 10% of the design should have what we call the accent. So this is the 60-30-10 rule for every design. Right, I'm going to explain what that simply means. So the dominant color are the colors that you use most in your design. The colors used most in the design. For instance, the background of this design is a dominant color because it is mostly, you see a larger part of this design is white. So the dominant color here is what? White. So the color that you use most in a design is what we call what? The dominant color, right? And you should not use more than 2 dominant colors for any design. So moving on, we also have what we call the subordinate color. Subordinate color is just like the complementary color that you use for any design, right? The color you use, a supporting color, I would say, a color that you use to support the design, just to make it more complementary, is what we call the subordinate color. So we often use it less than the dominant color. Like I said, the dominant color uses more, and that's why it takes 30% of your design. But for the subordinate color, you tend to make it 30% of your design, right? So it doesn't really take much, part of it doesn't take a lot of, some parts of your design. Now, the last one is the accents. Accents are the colors that you use sparingly, right? You just try to make them call attention to some parts of your design. Not particularly that it's everywhere. For instance, you want to talk about price, you want to talk about date, you want to talk about time. You kind of trying to limit the use of such colors so that they're not everywhere. Please, I want to be sure that you're following. If you are still following me, just drop in the comments that I am following If you're still following me, drop in the comments that I am following. I am following. All right. Okay, so I'm trying to, or let's I don't know if what my screen is showing now. Okay. Let's go on Pinterest. I just want to make this as practical as possible so that you also understand all of that. I've been talking a lot since. So I hope someone will not think that when we should say the main thing. All right. I just want to I always like to lay the foundations. I have to log in. Oh, come on. Oh, this is not going to work. I had to get another someone's PC to avoid stories that thought because my laptop can be very funny. So I'm just going to close this. I need to log into my own account, which is not here right now. Okay, let me just search for flyers. I'll definitely see. And yeah. So we have flyers here. I'd have particularly just love to have to go on Pinterest because you'll definitely see better designs there. But let's just work with what we have here. So I just want us to look for a design where we can just quickly identify what the dominant colors are, what the accent colors are, and what the subordinate colors are. All right. So I'm trying to scroll to check. Oh wow, this okay. This was one of my quotes that I learned from Mr. Nahim Uthman. Okay, so let's. I don't know. I don't know how these designs are looking. They're looking. All right, because of time, let me just take up one. So let's just open this design. So if you look at this design, what are the colors that you can see there majorly? I think I'm only seeing two colors actually. So what are the colors you can see here? It's looking a bit blurry though. I hope you can still see my screen. Yellow and white, awesome. Okay. It's not just yellow and white. Well, brother, come back here. Okay, so it's not just yellow and white. There are about 3 colors now. I'm just seeing that. If you can see my screen clearly. If you can see my screen. All right, so it's looking like black from afar, but it's actually brown. So we have yellow, we have white, and we have the brown. So can anyone tell me what is the dominant color here? What is the dominant color here? Okay, someone said yellow. Awesome. So you see that every part of almost everywhere you'd see yellow, yellow, yellow a lot. Now you'd see that the subordinate color is what? What is the subordinate color that we have here? White. Thank you very much. So that means white was used to complement the yellow. So you would always want to choose colors for your designs that complement well with each other, right? Colors that go well. And that's where I'm still going to arrive at the end of all of this my talk, because the major essence of it all is knowing how to combine colors together. But I had to really take a deep dive to what color psychology is all about so that we can understand that well before I now, delve into the other part of what we are here for. So this is how you can easily just tell that for every design, there usually will be a dominant color. For every design, there usually would be a subordinate color, and there would also be an accent. So you see that the brown color here, which isn't used so much, was used to write special discount, because you want people to see that this is a discount, that you can always just grab, right? This is also used to highlight this particular headline here. So they use these colors to be able to display what they're talking about for any design. So I'd like us to just move on to the next part because of time. Let me. Now, where was I? Okay, so I think we're almost done, which is good. All right, so next we'll be talking about color contrast. Color contrast, color contrast. And this is where I would make more emphasis on for us to really understand well, how to combine the colors. Now I've taught us how to what would help in choosing colors, and I'm just going to go over it again. I mentioned that you need to understand whom your audience are before creating a design. Who is your friend? Before thinking of what colors to use, go on Google and first of all ask yourself, what are my audience? What are those that I want to create this design for? By the time you think about it, also think about the kind of emotion you want to convey to them. Do I want them to feel this energetic feeling after seeing my design? Do I want them to feel calm and cool? Do I want them to feel, composed, right? Are they for mature people? If so, just go on Google what color appeals to elderly people, what color appeals to young people, what color gives warmth, what colors give happiness, what colors, if you want to create a design, let's say for business owners for instance, what colors, these are things you need to think about. This Google will then give you suggestions from there, because at the end of everything, remember, your color speaks and your color communicates. Your color communicates to people whether you are there or not. So you have to be very careful with the choice of colors that you choose for any design, right? Now, knowing how to combine the colors well for them to come out well is also important. So one of the rules when it comes to creating a design is to ensure that number one, you do not use, I wrote here that you should not use too bright colors for your design. Okay, I wanted to start by saying that it's important that you don't use too many colors for your design, right? Someone said my voice is cracking. I hope it's not the same with every other person. Please, if you can hear me clearly, let me know. If it's the same that it's cracking, please let me know so that I will know whether it's the network. And maybe I need to go and, I don't know, climb the tree to get a good network. Okay, somebody said my voice is loud and clear. So I guess it's from your end. And now I don't have to climb the tree. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. So I was saying that it's important that you do not use too many colors for a design, right? Avoid using too many colors for a design. And at most, 3 colors are fine. Now, there are cases where some people use more than 3, right? It's not how do I put it? Like I said earlier on, when you're creating, let's say, a design for children, you may want to use more than that design colors just to appeal to them. So there are few cases where you can go out of the design rule, but a very easy way is the proper way is to ensure that you do not use more than 3 colors for your design so that it's able to communicate well. Imagine a person, right? Someone that is fully dressed. Now let's try to imagine this in your mind as I'm saying it, right? The person is putting on a green cap. Person is putting on a yellow t-shirt. The person is putting on a purple trouser and then putting on a red shoe and then carrying a yellow bag. When you see somebody dressed like that, how would you feel? What comes to mind? Are you like, wow, this is nice? Or you post a picture and post it on Instagram as another trending issue? Okay. So that's disorder. Chin also said disorder. Yeah. So the person is from Ijesha. I'm not there. I don't know. Okay, masquerade, rainbow. Now, in the same way where you don't want people thinking that you've gone nuts when you dress, and that's why you don't wear too many colors on your body, except you're a rainbow, of course, or you're trying to portray something. Aside that, it's also important. That's also, it's being communicated when it comes to design. Make sure you do not use too many colors, or else your design would also look like that kind of person that you have imagined now that looks weird because of the too many colors that the person has put on. So you see how people are usually very deliberate about their outfits. You may be. I'm very sure some people here hearing me, there are people that would spend hours in front of the mirror trying to be sure that they look so good before leaving their houses. There are some people here, right? I have a friend that usually like that, trying to, before she goes out the following day, she has worn like 10 clothes. And my mind, I'm like, I've not even left your house. The day I've not even come, calm down. But they want to be sure that they are looking good. So some people are like that, right? And by the time they are fully kitted, right, and they come out, and you're like, wow, this looks so good. It is in the same way when it comes to design, you have to be very careful about it. Try not to create a rainbow with your design. At the same time, avoid using colors that do not contrast well. One major thing you need to understand so well is contrast. I've seen people struggle a lot with colors because they do not understand how to make sure that their colors contrast well. Now, what I mean by contrast, if you've learned about design principles, you know that contrast simply means things that are opposite, right? Things that the level of difference, right? Contrast is simply the level of difference between one particular element from another. How different are they? So when you have a design, you need to have a good level of a good contrast. I'm trying to make it very simple so that it's not looking like what she's saying. All right. When you're creating a design, there has to be ones and opposites, right? Like you already know, white and black. Those are opposite things. Man and woman, they're opposite things. Husbands and wife, they're opposite things. Now, a typical example here is if of those that maybe want to get married or are already married, imagine if a couple already married and one person is always hot, one person is always, I don't want to use that word. It's someone that is always, if you give them hot, they give you back hot. If you say one, they already said like 100. That person, imagine that person marrying their kind, marrying the same kind of person that has sharp and razor mouths. And before you have said A, they have said A to Z. Now, if those two people marry themselves, they are the same. Now, if they get married to themselves, what do you think they will produce in the house? There will be a lot of broken bottles every day. And somebody said, blood go they flow through. They'll be breaking bottles in their houses because they are the same thing. And imagine them trying that. That's why you see that people, when it comes to relationship, people are attracted to people that are opposite themselves. They don't want someone. You see a short person. I'm sorry, I don't want to use the word short in case so that somebody will not think I'm talking to. That is not you I'm talking to. So you see someone that is not so tall, looking to marry someone that is tall. They want tall, dark, and handsome, right? And you see someone that is dark wants to marry someone that is light in complexion. Now that is a typical example. Say, opposite always attracts, and it's the same with design. You want to use colors that are opposite in nature. That's where contrast comes in, because if you use things that are not opposite, that don't have contrast, that verbose will come, and that simply means that there will be no contrast in your design. So in plain words, you need to ensure that you use colors that are opposite. Never use too bright colors in your design. Colors that are bright, that are shouty, that make noise, don't use them in your design. For instance, try reading this text I wrote. I used a very a tint of pink on a tint of, I think this is still, is it green or blue? I don't always know. I don't know. Don't mind me. But you get what I mean. Now, how easy is it to read the text I've written here? Can you tell me in the chat, how easy is it to read the text that I've written here? For these first two, how easy is it to read the text that I've written, that you have in this? Okay, not easy, right? So this is something that somebody will struggle to read. Now, when you're trying to create a design, and you know that someone reading this, in fact, you yourself, ask yourself, can I read this without straining my eyes? Now, imagine if it's a billboard, and I use this kind of color where I know that people will be driving past. They don't have that patience to just stand and be reading your design, like if it's a social media where they can easily see that and be observing. But if I'm driving past, I'm in traffic, I don't have that luxury of time to be straining my eyes. I want to be able to see it legibly without straining my eyes and struggling. The colors have to contrast well. The colors have to be visible. So if you want people to be attracted to your design, be mindful of the color contrast. Be mindful of the choice of colors that you combine together. So do not use too bright colors in your design, because too bright colors will not contrast well, and it will make your design look too bright and unprofessional. Some people will really struggle. The readability of your design will be very, very poor. Now, compared to what we have on the right side, where this is a a shade of purple, right? And you see white. Now, this is a dark color used for the circle, and then a bright color, which is white, is for the text. Makes it easier because they are opposite. One is dark, one is bright. So using this combination makes it easier for me to read what I have here. In essence, every time you want to choose a design, a color for your design, just ask yourself, can I read this easily? Do this color go well? I'm going to make this practical so you understand better, and then I'll round up from there to take our question. So this is an example of what I wanted to, excuse me, what I want to portray. Now, this part, just let me explain this. This is background, right, at the top. So you see it written here. This is the background. And the backgrounds, the names of the backgrounds are written here on top. You are also seeing them. Of course, you know what the colors are. You know this is yellow, I'm pointing at here. You know this is orange. You know this is red. Now, this is the foreground. Foreground is simply the text, color of the text, right? We have the red, we have orange, we have. So here, imagine using a red background. This is the first box I'm looking at. And then a red color for the text. Can you see anything here? I'm pretty sure your answer is no. Now imagine using a orange color for the background. And then you now also have a red color for your text. Is this also readable? No. But here we have a yellow background and a red text, which is good because it's easy to read. So the contrast here is good. While the contrast for the second box here is quite poor and it's difficult to read. In the same way, if you keep checking out all of this, right, the idea is there are only a few of these ones that you can easily just read well. That's where contrast comes in play. So you need to be able to determine if these colors will go well together. I'm going to head over to, I think that's the last slide, and then we'll take our questions. But before then, I just want to make a more practical explanation of what I mean. So I'm just going to create a new slide, or page rather. Then I'll bring in a shape. So we have something like this. Now you want to choose a color. And I'm assuming that, I hope you are following, I hope you are learning. Please, I hope you are learning. I hope this is at least making some sense to you, and I hope it's helping somebody. So let's assume that this is a color I've chosen, right? And we've assumed that you've gone to, do your research to find out if this color is something befitting for your audience, if it's a color that will evoke the kind of emotion that you want it to evoke, if it's a color that speaks to your audience in language you want it to speak. Remember, colors speak. So you need to take out time to check. If it is green, whatever, no, you are now the one to determine the shade. I've talked about the meaning of shade. I've talked about the meaning of tint. You're not the one to determine whether the shade of green you want to use, the tint of green. Before we head over to that part, let me just explain that better using this illustration before I go back to the color contrast. So this is the original color here. This is a color, kind of like a color palette on Canva. So for those that don't use Canva, don't mind me. I have a larger number of people here that use Canva, so that's why I thought to use this. So this, if I drag this here, you see this on Canva. You see what happens to the shape, right? If I drag this here, this is the. Can somebody tell me what this is called? From what I've explained, those terminologies I gave. What do we call this? What do we call this? Anybody? Hugh. Thank you, Chinosu. Thank you, Michael. Somebody said tint. Blessing. Should I? Okay. Some people are not in this class. Their mind is here. They're already cooking and cooking beans in their house. All right. So it is hue. So this is hue, and I said it's the original color, the actual color that we have. Now, the more I keep dragging into that this part here is the white part of my design. This part at the bottom here, I hope you can see what I'm pointing out. The part I'm touching here is a dark part of my design. The more I drag into the white part of my design, you see what happens? It's getting lighter because it's now becoming a tint of green. I hope you are getting me. I just wanted to emphasize what I had talked about earlier to make it more practical. So the more I drag it toward the white part, it's becoming brighter and lighter, and that's making it a tint of green. Even up to this part, it's still a tint of green. Right. Now, if I choose to drag it down, what happens is it gets darker. I'm dragging it down to black. So it becomes what? A shade of green. So a shade, not shade. Somebody say shade. Okay, it's shade anyways. So it becomes a shade of green because it's now becoming darker. Now this part that is gray, if I drag it towards the gray area, it becomes what? A tone. So that's just trying to explain. So even after you've chosen, okay, I want to use green, you still can decide what shade or what tint or what tone of green you want to use. That's left to you to decide. So after we've done that, I'm just going to use, let's say, a shade of this green. Now you're wondering, what color can I combine with this? I'm just going to duplicate this. So I have another copy. What color can I combine with this? What you simply can do, I'll click on the background, change, so I'm trying to think of, all right. So I'll click on, let me just choose a color first, then we'll head back to that. So I'm going to, let's just try to see, let's see if, I'm just trying to play around, right? Let's see if this would work, right? Let's see if this would work, combined together. So you click on the background. I've clicked on the background. I want to go to my color. I want to change the background just to test the color contrast to the first color. Now, if this color you have here, do you think it's going well? Do you think, or you can even bring in a text? I think that's even better. Having a text there helps you test whether it is readable or not. So you have something like this. I like to make it bold so you can see. Now for the color of my text, if I try to use that color I chose, how readable is this? Would you say this is a good color contrast? Would you say it is a poor color contrast? Please let me know in the chat. What do you think about the color contrast? Based on, yeah, poor. Somebody said it's good, okay? Depending on you, all right. So it depends. For you, it may be good. So what I always do here, let me just tell you, sometimes when I'm done with my design, I try to show it to somebody. It may even be maybe my mom, or it may even be a friend I just sent you on WhatsApp to ask, do you think you can read the text in the design clearly without straining your eyes? If the person says no, then I go back to make adjustments. Right, I can easily just make this. I go to the color contrast, of course. You can try to check if I bring this here, would this work better, right? Or just try to work around it to change the color. So this would help. Try to ask yourself, and if you still think it's good, but you're not sure, you can ask a third party, or is it a second party now? You are one party. Oh, I don't know. You ask somebody else, anyways, to see whether it's a good color contrast. If it doesn't work well, you can still try to check out other color. If I try to check out the slider I have here, you see what happens? Now that I've turned it to a yellow color, can you see the level of difference and contrast that we have here? Now, is this a poor contrast or a good contrast? Anybody? Do we have a poor contrast now or a good contrast? Okay, Menga said good. Someone said, Abiola said fine. Okay, someone said it's still poor. All right. So the more you keep checking, you can even still stay. There's what we call the monochromatic color, where you're using just one color for your design, but you're using different shades and tints. You may have seen a design where the person used only one color, a green color, and then they are using a lighter shade of green and another lighter, they're just trying to play around with the shade and tint of that color. Just one color. That's what we call monochromatic color. Just one color for a design. So you can make use of it, but make sure that the level of contrast is good. Make sure that the level of contrast is what is good. So the more you keep checking, again, and to make life easier. Why is this making noise? I hope the noise is only from my end. All right. So I was just trying to say that the more you keep checking, the easier it becomes for you to know what colors would work well. So if this color is not satisfactory enough, you can try to change it. Now let's try out another color combination. Let's try out this color in the background and then change the color of the text. I was going to put this here. So you see that if I do something like this, the color contrast will be so poor and you won't be able to still read the text very well. But I can try to drag it out like this to get a tint of that orange such that it comes out so well. So this is to tell you that before you start any design, try to test the color contrast. Try to check whether the colors will go well for your design. This will make it easier. Now, another thing I wanted to share is there are platforms that helps you check color contrast. There are platforms that gives you combinations to color, right? Colors that you can easily combine well. And one of that is Encyclopedia. So you can try out this particular website. So I'm trying to check if you can still see my screen. All right. So if you go over to this website, I'm going to, you see my cursor here. I'm going to click on the color bar, just this. Now this figure written here is the color code. It's called a color code. If you put in this number for any color in a design, right, it's going to give you this same color anywhere because that's the color code. It's just like the identity of the color. Now, if I choose a particular color, I'm trying to just look for a nice color I can bring out. So now I click on search. When I click on search, it can also tell me the name of the color. It can give me suggestions on colors that can be combined with this same color. It will tell me the level of saturation. So this is the original color. This is when it is darker. This is a grayscale. Grayscale simply means when your design is in white and black, right? If I was using a Photoshop, I would have easily just shown you that how you can just check the grayscale of your design to see the level of contrast in your design. So this is when it is inverted, kind of like the opposite of the color. So you can even use the inverted color as a color that can be combined with it. And here you're going to see more on, these are colors that are related. It says here, this is closely related color. These are intermediately related color. These are distantly related. And then if I scroll down here, you can see some color schemes it's suggesting. Now here it has already placed it on the background so that you can even see if I combine this, use this color with this, would it work well? So already you see what you get, the result. So this is you being able to tell, okay, if I'm not sure of the color contrast, can I come and check on this website to see what colors it will suggest to me? If I click on this other one here, you see another color combination that it has pointed out to me. It's showing a complement of the color, showing the analogous and the split color, triads, and the likes. So these are color combinations that you could also, this is a tool that you can use to check out colors that would help in combining color. Another thing that could help, especially if you're working for a brand, is before choosing a color, try to ask if they have a brand color that they use. So you could make use of the brand color for your design. It's if the brand doesn't have a brand color that you can then go ahead to look out for colors that would help you communicate well. I hope that makes sense. My time is up. This is already 7:30 and I don't want to shoot beyond that. So I really hope I've been able to communicate this well to us. And I'd like to draw a close to my session here and take a few questions before we end. So we've been able to trash out the color thing from at least what happened to my voice. Okay, thank you. I love it too. Thank you very much. So I'd like to take our questions now. I'd like to take our questions. I'd love to ask questions to understand if you really got what I had taught. So let's take our questions. Let's take our questions. If you've got questions for me, if you have questions for me, now will be a good time. Now will be a good time. If you have questions, do well to ask. All right. Okay, so okay, Isaac is asking. I just wanted to say for every other person that we're done with the class. I'm just taking questions in case you want to attend to something else or you need to leave or something. So we've actually finished. I think I'm muted. Okay, I didn't realize I was muted. All right, so I was saying that we've been able to finish up with the class. So in case you feel the need to, maybe you have something else you need to attend to, I hope you can hear me now. Please, I was saying that we're done with the class because I wanted to keep the time, like I said. But in case you have something else to attend to, that'll be fine. But I'd like to just take questions for those that have questions now. So the questions I got here, the first one by Isaac is saying, what if I meet a brand and their brand color has bad contrast? Now, it depends. You as a designer, it's still your job too, because the brand identity of a business matters a lot. And you can't say because you don't like the colors, right, that you can't, you want to change it, because that would definitely affect the brand identity. Imagine if a designer now wants to work for MTN and then feels in his opinion that the brand colors are not so good and decides to use, let's say, red, and you're an MTN customer, you see something like that, how would it feel? You would definitely know that something is off, because that's not MTN, because that color is, and anywhere you see yellow, you know that's MTN everywhere you go. And it already has created an identity for them. So it's very important that you understand that the brand colors, you can't just change it anyhow. But first, if you feel that the colors are not going so well, you need to speak with the client, right? If they don't mind working on the brand colors to change it, so that that's something that they will now consistently start using afterwards. Or you can try to look out for how to, like I said, there's what we call monochromatic color. You can pick out one color from design and try to use the shade and tint of that color, right, without having to. So maybe they have a blue and a red that they are not matching so well. You can just work with a blue color, complement it with black. Black is a neutral color, you can use anywhere. Complement it with black, and then maybe a shade of that blue. Try to work around shades of that same color. You would see, you may have seen designs like that. If you have been studying designs a lot, there are lots of designers that use monochromatic colors like that, and then it still comes out so well. And then when they want to try maybe another design, they use the second brand color, maybe their secondary colors. So this, I would have loved to talk about primary colors, secondary colors, and the tertiary colors, which simply talks about primary being the main colors of a brand. Secondary is just like a color that also complements the brand color, right? That isn't used as much as, just like we talked about the dominant colors and the light. So this are things that you need to pay attention to. You can't just outrightly change the brand color because it's not coming out well. But as I gave an illustration that I had that same issue when creating a design yesterday, and I saw that the color wasn't really suitable. But it was not. I wanted it to be that it's the client that will be able to tell me, okay, at least is it that chose the color. So now that you saw it in design, how is it looking like? So when she mentioned, I didn't change the color outrightly. I only used a shade of that color. I did not, because it just seemed too bright for the person. So I only used a shade of the color. I didn't change their brand colors for them. So I hope that answers your question, Isaac. Chinonso is saying, is black and white a color in design? Yes, I mentioned that already. I mentioned that when I talked about the once again, those warm colors, cool colors, and neutral colors. I talked about black and white, and brown as neutral colors, and you will see them on the color wheel. They are colors, right? And usually, when we are counting colors in design, usually we don't always count black and white as part of. If I check your design, I'm saying, okay, you use did you use up to 2, 3, 4 colors? I won't count white and black as part of the colors that you've used, because those are neutral colors and you'd always tend to use them for almost any design. So they are parts of colors you use for designs. You always use them. It helps a lot. You can even create a design that is only black and white. I've seen that a lot of time, and it comes out so well. Even when you're reading a newspaper, what color do you see there? Majorly black and white, because it's a newspaper. It is not a rainbow paper, and it's not a paper that's supposed to be so captivating. People want to read a lot of things, and that's why I talked about the fact that understanding the purpose of what you are creating design for, who you are creating design for. For a newspaper, imagine them using different colors. It's not a magazine. People want to take their time to read. They are reading, so they don't need a lot of colors contrasting. That's why it will always be in black and white print. So yes, it is. Happy Achiever is saying, I didn't really get the encyclopedia. All right, I'll share my screen for that again. Who is asking a snake line to divide the design? I don't know what a snake line. I don't have snake line in my design. What's snake line? Please explain better so that I can understand what you mean. Just so I can understand what you mean, please. Thank you. All right. So I'm trying to share my screen now. So I want to head over to the encyclopedia. There are other tools. I think Canva also has a color contrast tool. I've not just used it before. Even this, I don't usually use this. I don't know. I got so accustomed to knowing how to just combine the colors. It's easier. With time, you may not need to have to use these tools if you implement what I taught, trying to check, use the color you want to use, open a plain background and try to use one of those colors as the background, and then write some text on the background, just like I've shown you. Use the second color you want to use and try to see whether they contrast well. It will help you know whether these colors have a good amount of contrast or not before proceeding. So you may not even need to have to come to other external tools. I don't even use them. I don't use them for designs per se. So for the person asking about the encyclopedia, I came over here. You just search for the name, just like I've said. You don't have to sign up if you don't want to, or you can if you want to. So if you come over here where it has a color code, just click on it and all of these color things here will come out, right? You can then select, just click on any part where the color. If I click on this part, the color will change. If I click on this part, the color changes. If I click on this, the color changes. So it depends on the color I want. Or if you already have a color code, like I've said, you can just come over here and type it in. All right. If I use 000 is black, right? FFF is like white. So if I put in a color code, it automatically changes my color. So that's pretty much how to just, first of all, select the color that you want to use. No, I don't have a color code to use. All right. So once you put this in and you enter the search icon, it's going to search the color that you want to use. All right. It's going to search the color that you want to use. So I try to reload the page. So I'm doing that again. I'll click on a part of the color. My PC battery is down. Okay, so once I click on this, I click on search. Now, what encyclopedia does is to help you check, the color variations that you can, for that part. This is the original color I've chosen, right? You see the inverted color. That tells you that this color even can be complementary to this original color. You see the lighter part of the color, which is a tint. You see the darker one, which is what? Shade, right? This is desaturated, adding, gray to it. So this is just you taking our time to, you may need to just come on this website to check it out more. And as I've said as well, you may not need to depend solely on these tools. You can also, as you continue designing, it's going to be easier for you to know how to choose color. So I was saying that all of these ones we have here, when you click on them, they will show you different combinations that you can use for the yellow. This is the yellow color that we are choosing. That's what we have in this large rectangle. It's yellow. We're now trying to look for colors that can be combined with it. So if you come over here, this color can be combined. This color can be, it's telling you colors that you can use, right? Although I'm not the level of contrast of this is quite poor. So you also have to decide on, okay, would this work? Can I try this out to see how it works? Then if you click on this other one, gives another contrast, right? Another color combinations that you can use. So you keep clicking to check, and you still see ones. And you can easily just